At 18, I still live alone in a cramped apartment. It's so small that I can clearly see everything happening in it. I always keep the doors and windows tightly shut. Only then do I feel safe. I once had a loving family. Back then, I lived in a big house with my parents and my older brother. My parents were always busy with work, unable to spend much time with me, but I clearly remember how my brother would always tell me stories. He was much older than me, and whenever our parents worked late into the night, he was the one who took care of me. Fortunately, he never complained about spending time with me, and I made sure not to disturb him unnecessarily. To my parents, I was a shy and quiet child. At school or at home, I would lock myself in my room and stay alone, only coming out for meals or when asked. I thought I was doing my best not to bother anyone, but looking back now, I might have come across as cold and distant. Maybe if I had tried to talk to them more, things would have turned out differently. One night, I was awakened by the sound of the doorknob rattling. I thought my brother needed something, but as I got out of bed to open the door, I realized my brother was calm and patient. He had never knocked this aggressively before. As time passed, the knocking grew louder and more violent. All I could do was curl up under the covers. Eventually, I fell asleep. The next morning, I woke up drenched in sweat. I tried to convince myself it was just a nightmare, but when I opened my door and stepped into the living room, that scene has haunted my mind ever since. Even though I can't recall most of it now, I clearly remember the floor was covered in blood. The metallic smell in the air reached deep into my throat. Outside the sealed-off crime scene stood several police officers. The flashing red and blue lights made me feel like I was still dreaming. It seemed to become the only memory I retained of my past life. Later, I was placed into foster care. Eventually, I found this apartment that I could call my own. By then, I could hardly remember what my family looked like. I became a shut-in, living a cheap life by working online. Looking at myself in the mirror, I wondered, am I still that little boy who trembled under the covers years ago? Maybe my biggest mistake was lacking the courage to face the outside world. Or maybe I simply couldn't face the fear of the unknown. One day, I logged into the dark web using a browser. I told myself it was just a way to cope, to face some of my inner fears. But the images I saw were unbearable. A soldier's legs blown apart, lying on concrete. A driver decapitated and disemboweled in a car crash. A man struck by lightning, his skin charred black and blue. Seeing those made me feel physically ill. I tried to close the browser, but curiosity kept me scrolling. After a while, I convinced myself I could handle it. At least I didn't curl up in bed from panic. Then I clicked on a title about family. I wasn't sure what I was expecting. There was a video. It showed a living room. A middle-aged couple had tape over their mouths. They sobbed in pain. I also heard the muffled sobs of a young man behind the camera. Soon, two masked men entered. They stood behind the man and woman, gently placing hands on their shoulders as if to comfort them. The sobs of the man off camera grew louder. Suddenly, with no warning, the masked men pulled out spring-loaded knives and swiftly slit their throats. The only sound was the gurgling from their throats. They couldn't even scream. But what shattered me wasn't the violence. What terrified me most was when the camera panned to the side. I recognized the boy. It was my brother. That living room, it was my home. The man and woman on the sofa, their faces became familiar. They were my parents, and I was watching the moment they were murdered. That night, I immediately called the police. The new evidence helped reignite progress in the cold case. That was the only good thing I got from my trip into the dark web. I've since given up trying to face fear head-on. Maybe I can only truly find the courage to leave my apartment when the person who murdered my family is finally caught.